Hello, EggChasers. It's the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, a podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. Back in the Rugby Dungeon, I'm Tim with barefooted OnlyFans favourite JB.
Hello, Tim.
And with Phil.
Hello, Tim.
Who's wearing some quite chunky footwear, in fact.
Trail shoes.
There you go. Where have you been walking / trekking today?
Round Ashton IKEA.
Ooh, hello.
What did you do on a Sunday, mate? What did you do to deserve that?
It was actually not that. We only went quite late on.
For hot dogs?
Missed the second half of the game just to pick up some furniture for the loft.
So when you saw Rashford had scored, you thought they've got this. Let's go get some furniture.
I think went Leicester Tigers game.
Yeah, Leicester Tigers game.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Actually, it was the Leicester Tigers game. I saw the first. Sorry, I thought it was an empty cup. Thought it was the. So yeah, saw the first half of the Leicester Tigers game, which we will get onto in this pod or the next pod.
In this pod.
This pod.
Yeah, tell everyone what's on this pod, Tim.
This podcast is our domestic podcast. So we were debating splitting the podcast this week into on-field and off-field because there's a lot of stuff going on off the field. However, we're going to draw the line between domestic, grassroots, and domestic and grassroots rugby. On-field and off-field, and we'll have a separate international podcast with all the shenanigans going on in the Wales camp, and also looking ahead to the fixtures this coming weekend in the Six Nations. That's on the other podcast, which is why you need to hit subscribe in your feed. You need to tell your mates, and if you appreciate the podcast, the fact we're there for you 52 weeks of the year into our 10th season, then you can support the podcast, keep the lights on, and show your appreciation by going to patreon.com/EggChasers. Thank you to all our patrons. I'll endeavour to get through some emails as well. In fact, there was one, JB. I'm just going to check whether it was international rugby related. But it did say it started with JB is correct.
Finally.
Because you
do exist.
You were accusing me of deliberately sabotaging.
I'm just saying the curation of the emails is somewhat suspect.
Well, it says... here we go. JB is right. I'm looking for it.
JB is right.
Agreeing with JB. It's from Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
And Aaron said, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. Love the pod, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to say JB was right when he said... Oh, yeah, I just want to say JB is right. When he said, quote, he obviously hasn't been told to F off enough in response to Mike Bubbins' tweet about the tackle height. There you go. There's someone saying you were right. He says, however, I also think you guys do a great job in policing JB's sweeping statements, and he gives an example.
Can't wait.
Do you remember what your response to this was, Phil? JB said, quote, Richie McCaw's performances were dropping off towards the end of his career. To which Phil replied...
I can't remember what I said.
Quote,
he did win the World Cup with his final game.
Exactly that.
They did drop off. Two things can be true at once. Well, who's got any news? I might kick off with some news. How's that?
Is this Talk H news?
It's local rugby news.
I can't wait to get into Talk H news this week, but go ahead with something else.
So we found out this week that the two Lancashire RFU councillors have decided to step down. Now, I think they're term limited rather than stepping down.
Sure.
But they're all going.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not to say they've not been brilliant servants for the game.
Like Nicola Sturgeon and Jacinda Ardern have just decided to stand down.
Don't know why that is, anyway. Yes, so they've decided to step down, which means the two Lancashire councillor roles are up for grabs, which is exciting. So I put my application in today. I have been forwarded, of course, by the mighty Talk H, and seconded by Burnage Rugby Club. So I'm now doing...
very good.
Yeah, so thank you to Burnage for their help.
What happens now? Do you know how many other people are in for it?
No, I've got no idea. So, I mean, it's an interesting one, because I've never thought about the RFU Council. I mean... Well,
JB 2020,
yeah, but
your campaign,
as a joke, we're looking... When I say I've not thought about it, like, as a joke, you say, let's do that. Let's go to all the Twickenham games. Let's do this, that and the other.
5-star hotels, expenses.
Things which are really important. But you don't really understand what they were doing. And the best thing about the tackle height debate is now we understand that they were meant to be representing us and they weren't doing that. And they never have done that. And it occurred to me that I have never encountered my RFU councilman. Never. And not only have I never encountered him, I was talking to senior rugby administrators in multiple clubs this week as I'm doing lots of phone calls. And they're like, what, we get a vote on this? Like, most of them don't even know. So you've got this system which, and people say it's not fit for purpose. Sorry, it's not fit for its purpose. But actually, maybe they just don't know how the system works. I think it's really important. So I don't think, and I don't want to say the councils have not been doing their job or not been.
Oh, now the politician is coming out.
Not being great servants to the game. But on this particular case, they absolutely have not listened to their constituents, and I think that's terrible.
We said this a couple of months ago or a month ago when this all kicked off. They've been derelict.
Dereliction of duty?
Their dereliction of duty. They've ignored the fundamental purpose of their role.
Yeah, they absolutely have. But it's really interesting to see that so many clubs don't know who these guys are. They don't know they have got a vote. I mean, there's lots of things going on here. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know really what people expect from the councillors. I mean, as long as rugby's on the weekends, I expect nothing from them. That's kind of how I'd like it to go.
So, have you actually applied now?
I have. My application has gone in.
How's fundraising going?
We've got a team of volunteers hitting the phones all the time. So, yeah, fundraising is going great.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic.
Let me know where I can contribute to your campaign.
I bet. Well, you've got a podcast to get your message out there as well.
Well, that's exactly right.
10 years of this, it's finally going to be worthwhile, JB.
Yeah. So, more local rugby news. The other top of the table clash. This isn't the top of the table clash because top of the table are Liverpool St Helens, who handily beat Leigh.
That's right, but you had a big game. It was second v third. The Metropolitan Club of Didsbury Tockh with its multi-million-pound catchment area against the parish of Tarleton.
I tell you what, do not be writing off Tarleton. They are a cracking team and a cracking club. And
what was the result?
Ready for it?
Yeah.
9-8. To Didsbury.
Yes. That is classic.
No tries, 3 pens.
Yeah.
Wow.
The way it should be.
Wow.
So true rugby.
0 tries to 1.
0 tries to 1. I tell you what, they were good. They were so good. Yeah, they were. In fact, I'd go so far as far as say they were too good. Because do you know when poker players say that it's very hard to play against amateurs because you just don't know what they're going to do? They're going to be absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Well, they were so organised. Like you kind of had a feel for what they were going to do because it made sense.
Yes.
And
too predictable.
Yeah, and I think we were exactly the same way. So I think we were looking at each other like we're basically playing each other here.
Yeah.
So we cancelled each other out completely. Tarleton came very mob-handed, so they stayed for a few beers afterwards. Some absolute great lads there. And it made me think about the difference now between level 6 and level 7. So this level 7 league that we're in, there are so many good clubs. So you've got the likes of Widnes, who just play rugby in exactly the right way. Tarleton, you talk to their committee, and how when a committee is really ambitious, it rubs off on everyone else. When they're saying the correct things, like we are ambitious, we want to do this, we want the club to go somewhere. You can feel that enthusiasm like throughout the entire squad. It's a really simple message. We want to do well, and everyone follows along. You look at the work of Aspel trying to get those rugby league lads in, gone from 1 team to 3 teams. So in level 7, what you're seeing is a lot of clubs that want to rise through and be ambitious. And I hate to say it, I think in level 6, you're starting to get these sort of declining forces who've forgotten their purpose. They're relying on their history. I think a little trip to level 7 would probably do them well.
Well, speaking of a trip to level 7, have a listen to this. Digby from Leatherhead.
Hi, Digby.
He says if you can shout out the Leatherhead and Effingham Eagles, that would be class. There you
go, Eagles.
Well done, go Eagles. So he said he went to actually watch some local rugby. After listening to us, he was inspired to go to his local club whilst visiting his parents for the weekend, and he went to. They've moved to Bury St Edmunds, and he saw that Dorking RFC, who were his Leatherhead's neighbours, were travelling to Bury St Edmunds for a game. Exhilarating. Bury St Edmunds going 4 tries to 0 down within the first 20 minutes. Fought back with some real let the boys play attitude to pull level at 44 all. 2 minutes before the full-time whistle, and then Bury St Edmunds managed to work their way up the field for a last gasp penalty. So, bit of grassroots rugby, love it.
Some of the games, right? If you get 2 good teams, brilliant.
Get this though.
Oh.
A team showing such good spirit in game management for the last 60 minutes anyway is coached by the younger brother of a very well-known, high-profile current player. Can you guess?
George Ford. Jacob Ford.
Jacob Ford, correct.
Yes, I know he's coaching it. I know my local rugby boys.
Very good. Right, we have got, in terms of briefly wrapping up some off-field issues. I need to find out how my boys Marlowe got on, by the way.
I don't know, actually.
And Aylesbury. Well, we'll work on that. But so we've got a few off-the-field issues. So we'll try and be brief with these. But Ealing got the door shut on them on potential promotion. Only Doncaster fulfil the excessively stringent cartel-like demands that the RFU place on clubs.
I have to admit, I'm more on the RFU side than not on this one.
Oh, right. Okay, so I see.
I
see.
Now
my goodness. It's not going to be like this, mate. This could be the end of the pod. I agree with the RFU.
Exactly. So I think there is good reason. Well, I think there was originally good reason to have standards for these clubs. Stadium standards.
10,000 all-seater stadium standards. 10, really?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem monopolistic.
It's not about that. It's like saying we are a professional sports league. These are standards. They must be fulfilled. But that was then. You are absolutely right to point out. If you don't need it, what are we talking about? I mean, the pro game has regressed so much in the last few years. Why would you need a 10,000 all-seater stadium? It is ludicrous. So I get you've got to have a certain amount of, you've got to have facilities for an academy or other bits and pieces or medical facilities and that kind of thing. But the stadium just seems ridiculous now. It seems absolutely ridiculous, particularly when you've got teams that don't have stadiums and they have to go bounce from place to place. You said only got London Irish, who are a better club for going to the Medeski for God knows how many years. Or Wasps, when they were bouncing from Wickham to Adams Park to wherever. Well, maybe Adams Park was in Wickham. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or London Welsh
Loftus Road
London Welsh going to Oxford.
Sam Stadium.
That's ludicrous.
I mean, if you've got the facility, by all means, it's great. But yeah, I'm with you. It's stupid.
And I think the noises that are being made is that I forget the chap's name, the Trailfinders business owner who's bankrolled this and whatever his name is. Anyway, apologies to that gentleman who's supported rugby for many years now. I believe he's so fed up that he's threatening a potential merger with the Welsh region.
Yes, I've heard this.
And there's also talk that actually, unlike London Welsh, who Phil just mentioned, who threatened legal action, but then when faced with the actual prospect of forking out for the bill for a very expensive process, they decided just to stand down and take a little bit of money off the RFU in compensation for any what's it called? However, I think this fella might actually be saying, no, do you know what? I'm going to spend the money because I believe this is monopolistic behaviour and I think I'll win. It might take me a while, but I think I'll win.
Wow.
Which is a massively scary prospect for the RFU.
Let's just, for 1 second, talk about London Welsh. I think this is an interesting story, and I'm sure someone will tell me I've got it wrong. But the guy who was the chairman of London Welsh when they were threatening to sue, apparently was a big city lawyer. A big city lawyer. And I might have my wires crossed here. Apparently his wife was the UK ambassador to Russia at the time. So that's the sort of circles that they were moving in, and they still didn't think it was worthwhile to sue. Levin someone it was.
It'd be interesting to see if they do actually, if it is just bombast and bluster looking for a bit of compensation, or if he does actually plan on doing it. He needs to speak to Marco Massotti, the Durban Sharks co-owner, who has on standby a team of New York lawyers ready to defend, specifically Razzie Erasmus for his many misgivings.
I wonder if those New York lawyers are very in touch with the South African legal system, and they'd have to actually perform the act of forcing the law. What I was going to say about Marco Massotti, he must have been raging the other day because there's another team called the Sharks in Miami. Oh, yeah, the Miami Sharks
launching next year in MLR.
I mean, he must be pulling out his hair.
Well, just on MLR, I suppose it's domestic rugby in its own form.
It is, yes.
We got Michael Jenricks got in touch. We've got a massive proportion of our listeners is in America. So you are very, very welcome.
We've got one in the Ascension Islands too.
Love it.
It does always surprise me when you look at the stats on Acast. There's a huge number of listeners in America.
15%, I think, something like that, which is incredible. Anyway, Michael Jenrick says, boyos, love the pod, blah, blah, blah. JB, tackle, law, blah, blah. Fight the good fight. He says, he's just watching from America, very happy about the pushback on this in the UK. But then finally wanted to mention that Chicago, his hometown and a city you boys love.
Yeah, with some great department stores.
They've joined the MLR in America. The Chicago Hounds started
Nice.
this weekend.
I like that name.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it as well. It's been a hotbed for rugby from grassroots up to the old boys, still playing into their 50s in the city, and a massive metro community. ChicagoHounds.com. And he wanted to point out that there's that app, what's it called? The Rugby Network have games on TV and phone apps. All the games are streamed for free. So if you're interested in watching some rugby, Major League Rugby has begun, and there is more expansion of the league. As you mentioned, next year there will be the Miami Sharks joining as well. So he says, what about a trip to Miami during the winter for some Six Nations viewing and an MLR match?
That might be on the cards.
I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
love it.
Love to go back to Chicago as well. That was great.
Yeah, I like the cold big cities.
So we were there for Halloween, weren't we? So it was just, we had a couple of cold days and a couple of like kind of mild days.
Yes,
good fun.
All
time,
messy days.
Each messier than the last.
We were only there for 3 days as well. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and they also merged into one. It was great.
Yes, very much so.
Moving on from one issue, so Ealing is one to watch. Worcester and Wasps. How do you summarise this? So let's just take the Wasps one, for example. So Wasps have been granted by the RFU or whatever the... Yeah, it's RFU,
it is RFU.
Yes,
license.
Yes, you can play in the Championship next year. You've satisfied our demands there. Where they'll be playing is still to be confirmed. Worcester have announced that they're leasing Six Ways, or Atlas, as they're now called, or whatever that...
Yeah, Atlas is the group that owns the consortium.
The group that own the consortium that own what was Worcester Warriors and what hopefully will still be Worcester Rugby Club or Warriors or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they say that Wasps are leasing Six Ways. Wasps have come out and said, well, we don't know that yet. So that's a bit up in the air.
I'm very confused on this. So I'm confused as to how you can say to a team, you're good to play Championship when you don't have a ground. I thought that would be absolutely fundamental to any...
Well, they may well have several options that we could play.
Right.
Six Ways.
We heard about Solihull Motors football team.
Yeah. So they've probably put forward a proposal that includes several options, but is non-specific at the moment.
Yeah, I would want guarantees that one of those options is viable.
Yeah.
So this is our backup option. This is what we might do. Or no, this is our backup option. Here are some other things that we might explore. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't surprise me that Wasps have got permission to play next year, because I think historically the Wasps fan base is probably deeper with a better sort of list of connections than Worcester. Remember, Worcester was built up by Cecil Duckworth, and it was never... And people who support Worcester will not thank me for saying this. It never had the history Wasps did. So if Wasps do like an all-boys dinner or a supporters dinner, there are some seriously important people that will be associated with Wasps.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that because I agree with what you just said. I'm just going to say, if you were a Richmond fan, I'd be pretty cheesed off that, oh, right, that's the punishment that Wasps are getting, is it? They're going down one league, whereas we had to go down 10.
Yeah, I don't really see why they don't have to go all the way down. I mean, that's what I would do. Certainly down to the bottom of the national leagues. I don't think it's acceptable just to go to the Championship. I don't know why it is, actually.
I tend to agree as well. I've not seen a clear explanation as to why the Richmond case was different than Worcester, and indeed Worcester, because Worcester, the RFU gave them the opportunity to meet the criteria, and Worcester has actually chosen not to fulfil those criteria. I know they've actually said that one of the criteria was repaying the creditors within 28 days, which they just said it's not feasible or possible, therefore they can't take that option.
Yeah.
The Worcester one probably gets a little messier because so Atlas is there's this consortium, Jim O'Toole is the face of it, and I remember when I think on Twitter he like blocked us because we asked a question about
Jim O'Toole's blocked us.
Creditors getting money. Yeah,
I'll text him. I'll see what that's all about.
Well, I think he might. I think someone at Worcester might have blocked us as well because we just asked a question about. Hold on, anyone getting their money?
Yeah.
And anyway, so that this one gets a little messier because what they're doing is... Sorry, I don't know how to explain this. So one thing I've always said, and we've always said when we're talking about this subject, is even if they go down to the bottom tier of rugby, there's still going to be a clubhouse with all those photos. There's still going to be a club with that name that has all those people that have played in that club, worn that blazer and that tie, represented it at whatever level. That's still going to exist. And that's the most important thing. What Jim O'Toole and his lot are doing is completely airbrushing out of history all of that and saying Worcester does not exist anymore.
So that was the announcement last week where they said they're going to be called Six Ways Rugby, something like that. There was a meeting with, I think it was a ticketed meeting, so there's 500 or 550 paid Worcester Warriors fans who turned up to an event on Saturday afternoon with Jim O'Toole and James Sandbrook.
Rings a bell.
Yeah, no, James. Yeah,
Stamford.
Yeah.
1 second. Sandford.
Yeah,
Sandford.
I get a very bad feeling about that bloke.
As part of that meeting, I think they've rode back on the Six Ways rebrand and are going to retain the Worcester Warriors name.
Okay.
But they are seeking, so they're dropping down several divisions, although the intention, as I understand it, is they're going to merge with Stourbridge. Stourbridge, who are about to get relegated from National to West, so 4th tier into 5th tier, and it's not quite a mathematical certainty, but they've got 11 points from 19 games. The nearest team has got more than double their points. It is highly unlikely they're going to get out of that situation. So they would drop down, merge, and then start with the remaining players from the Stourbridge first team and start bringing in former Worcester players and all the rest of it in order to work their way up the league. Now, the positive side of that is they're trying to get the foundation, stable foundations, and build on it over a number of years instead of just having to scrabble around, get a load of kind of journeyman players, pay them big money to almost stay in the championship and then try going up from there.
If they're saying they're keeping the Worcester name, does that mean Stourbridge is now called Worcester?
Well, effectively, Stourbridge would, I think, no longer exist.
I hate this idea.
Yeah,
I can't see any logic behind it. Why would you...
The logic behind it is they don't have to pay back any of the money.
There probably is something on that.
That's basically it.
Yes.
Which just stinks.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I get that the creditors probably will not get their money. That's not unusual.
And businesses will go... There will be companies that go out of business.
Yeah, and this stuff sort of happens, right? But if somebody wants to set up a business and then buy all the Worcester branding and history, they can do that. They can. That isn't a problem. That is something which someone can do. And take that history, go to the bottom of the league structure, work your way back up. Sale FC does something very, very similar. And I think Sale FC are quite a good example now. They're not a Premiership club. They never will be a Premiership club for obvious reasons. But they've got their history. They've got Haywood Road. They've got all the photos there. That is a proper historic club playing at the level that it should be. It took them years to get there. I can see Wasps doing the same thing. And it's not as if they don't have any sort of prestige. It's a seriously prestigious club, Sale FC. They're probably the senior club in Manchester outside of Sharks. I mean, I'd actually say, I'd go one further. They're probably the senior club in Manchester because they are Sale FC. That's a massive name. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like, Wasps could be a really good Nat 2 championship team with a load of history. So could Worcester. I don't know why they want to mess around, capturing Stourbridge. It's ridiculous.
So that's the plan as it goes. They're going to play there to whatever the new merged team, which will apparently be called Worcester Warriors, will be playing at Six Ways alongside potentially Wasps and Worcester Warriors women's team as well. Will all play there.
Why have the women's team... this is another thing which really bothered me. There's been a urgent moral imperative that we must save the women's team because, I don't know, reasons. They don't seem to have the same urgency for the men's.
Well, the men's is...
Would you agree with that?
Well, they must save the professional women's team, which is... Bearing in mind the professional women's team is funded by the men's team. That does seem a strange use of...
I just don't understand why it's such an emergency. I mean, surely
a women's team can still exist in an amateur form.
You'd have thought so.
As it did a couple of years ago.
But it's just like...
But yeah, I see.
There's some bizarre sort of moral imperative that you save women's rugby. But for the men's, like, yeah, well, it is what it is. Which is exactly the right attitude, actually. That's exactly how it should be.
And the other side of this is there seems to be some kind of upset from Worcester Warriors fans because the noises coming out of the Steve Diamond bid was that they, well, for one, would never have considered changing the name. For two, would have plans to pay the creditors. How true that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And number three, had a plan to return to the championship rather than drop down and do this rebuild. Now, but the second one, paying the creditors, if it was a realistic plan that got the creditors paid, I can't see why that one would not have succeeded.
There's obviously more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's almost too simple just to say on the main three parts, the Steve Diamond bid was better, but it failed.
Yeah,
it's
like they're just like Jim O'Toole. That's all it was. Jim O'Toole was nicer in the meeting.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
it's all quite ugly. And the final one is: do you understand what's going on at Leicester Tigers, Phil?
No, and you mentioned this before,
yeah,
and I've not really heard much
First
about
I heard
this.
It was on Twitter, rumblings on Twitter, but I do not know the story.
Well, so it's quite useful to go on from Worcester Wasps to Leicester, who are basically saying they need an injection of £30 million, or they face administration themselves.
Oof.
That'd be bad.
£30 million as well, because that's presumably to again pay creditors who might be a bit more linked to the club rather than third-party tertiary businesses, but who've given loans to the club and want to take their money back out.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
With almost no information, that's what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, there's noises out of Exeter. It always is that, yes, they make money, they do well on match days, but even they're looking at things thinking this is bleak. Really bleak, which is why you got messing around with the hotels and everything else.
Yeah. Transfer of ownership of the hotels. The the Chiefs selling the hotel back to Tony Rowe. Yeah, it's not really back to it, but he's on both sides of that equation, isn't he?
Yes.
Tony Rowe's doing all right.
Sorry, £13 million, I beg your pardon, not 30.
Well, 13 is a little better than 30.
Yeah. To be fair, the numbers are so big that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful. I do hope, part of me does hope, though, that enough teams go bankrupt that they can scrap the CVC deal and start again.
Well, that's interesting.
So what they've said is
CVC,
a planned £13 million cash injection is set to save Leicester Tigers from potentially going into administration. It could raise up to £13 million for the club, a move which was needed as Tigers admit recent events have seen their financial situation worsen significantly.
Cash injection? They're lending money. Sorry, borrowing money.
Tom Scott and Peter Tom are injecting £10 and £3 million respectively.
So this is additional loans from already directors or people on the board.
Or it could just be the refinancing of existing loans.
Yeah.
Or the new money.
The demise of Worcester and Wasps has been cited by CEO Andrea Pinchin as one of the main sources of grief of the Midlands giant coffers. As a quote, as a consequence of both clubs being expelled from the Premiership, Leicester Tigers lost 2 important home matches in the current season and associated matchday revenue. This loss of revenue has contributed to a significant deterioration in the company's financial position.
Well, to be fair to Leicester, opening the doors at Welford Road does make a difference. We've got, 20,000 plus people coming to watch? Nobody else has that. So if you start depriving them of home games, that is actually a really serious issue for them.
And the figure that came from Gloucester when, ironically, Wasps refused to play a home game there last year. Worcester refused to play a home game there last season was £250,000, and Leicester is 30% bigger than Kingsholm. So you're talking 300 plus K of lost. Now I don't know if that was. Presumably that was turnover rather than profit.
That was just tickets alone. There's the vendors and everything outside and all the businesses that rely on it.
It's big money taking that out of already stretched finances.
Yes. And there's a few things that pop into my head. One, we don't need to go over it again, but one is you talked about how bad the CVC deal was when it happened, and many times since, JB, and this is another example.
People don't listen to me. They just don't listen. Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about the Welsh 60 cap rule later. People do not listen.
Yeah.
But
it's CVC, like, where are they now?
Yeah.
Where are
well,
they
they're taking their money
taking
out.
their money, yeah. But
the geniuses. I thought
this is fracking the pie.
It's exactly what it is.
They are destroying it. They'll cover their original deal probably, and it will be a destroyed shell by the end of it. And
they're not to blame. They're doing right by their own investors and shareholders. It's the people. It's the people that signed the deal off.
It's like blaming your Labrador for fetching a ball. CVC are doing what CVC do.
Or the scorpion that's on your back when you're swimming across the river.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. They should never have got into bed with CVC, and now they're paying the price. And I, for one, am all for it.
Well, if the biggest club in England and the current champions are struggling, then that just goes to show you how what a messy situation it is, and how much we're going to be revisiting these topics at some point. But let's actually talk about some rugby.
Let's do that.
Yes, please.
Imagine.
I'll tell you what, as it was Valentine's Day this week, do you do Valentine's Day?
No,
I don't. Do you, Phil?
No,
good.
Actually, someone
love it.
Someone asked me on it was the Tuesday, wasn't it? The Valentine's Day.
I did legs on Valentine's Day.
I was down in London Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think this week, and someone asked me on the Wednesday, "Oh, did you do anything like for Valentine's night?" I was like, "I'm down in London." I was like, "Oh, did you like have a nice call with Claire?" I was like, "Did I?" No, the only time I spoke to Claire on Valentine's Day was to ask her to paint the loft. That was my only conversation.
Did you see the flowers for sale was it Victoria Station?
No.
Is it Victoria in London?
380 quid.
Yeah, that's right.
What?
Yeah, they had these
for like 2 dozen red roses.
Yeah, so stressed bankers coming off trains like, oh no, what can I buy my Lithuanian mistress? Yes, £200 worth of roses on the Amex.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So no, we're all in the same deal there.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just when you've got 2 kids and long-term married, it's just irrelevant.
Well, it's also one of those things, is it not? Like, it didn't De Beers make up that you need 6 months' salary for a wedding
3
ring?
months.
3 months, well, whatever it is, right? And then that gets inflated. Wasn't Valentine's Day made up by Clinton Cards or somebody?
Probably.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah.
One of the few times I've done it in the past, I was at university, and for a joke, I took a picture. One of my housemates had like this heart-shaped cushion, so I just as a joke just took everything off and said to one of our housemates, "I'll take a picture," and I just had that covering me. I think I'll put some shades on or something as well. Anyway, so it was just a piss take. I got the photo printed and just gave it as a joke. Anyway, my housemates got a hold of it, and on the day that the exam results were posted up on the board, I don't know if it happened with you.
No.
The exam results got posted up on the board at uni.
That is old school.
There was about 50 photocopies of that photo.
Photocopies as well. Love it.
Nice. Love it.
They must have gone through a lot of effort to do that. Because it's not like they were just... I mean, camera phones had only just come out when I was in uni.
Yeah.
Only the very basic ones. I wouldn't even know how to get a bloody picture off it.
Yeah, so I stayed off campus for a few days. Anyway, Eddie Moore. Hello, Eddie. Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. He says, lads, roses are red. Only tackle round the hip. Sale Sharks are winning the Gallagher Premiership.
Ooh. No, they're not.
Not if their discipline remains as it was this week.
Yeah. And also, just before we go, isn't it great to see Rainbow Month back in the Premiership?
Is that February, or is that just the next couple of weeks?
I don't know. They were all in rainbows.
All the refs were in the rainbow.
And all the clubs have changed their logo.
All looking ridiculous. It's just so cynical and pointless and awful. But yeah, they're all at it again because it's worked so well. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Premiership crowds have just increased year on year on year. And it's all because of the Rainbow campaign and stakeholder engagement. Fantastic stuff. Well done, Premiership.
On a serious point, I'll say this, as we say all the time when anything like this comes up, you will never, ever find a more welcoming, accommodating place than a rugby club, whether that's grassroots up to Premiership. So,
whatever. Wear the rainbow, bigot.
So, Yeah, it feels like some people, I'm sure, would think the gesture is a wonderful one, and that's absolutely fine. I think it's a gesture that's not needed because it's already inclusive, welcoming.
You know, pride has gone too far. And in Manchester, what used to be an actual genuine celebration is now populated by like literally. What was the one last year? Like it was a heavy machinery brand. Had a stall there. Why? What have they got to do with Pride?
Pride?
Yeah, like
really?
they bought a JCB and painted it with... Why? I have no idea why.
It's a fun day out.
Fun day out, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
But they don't even have fun. They just hand out leaflets about JCBs with
everyone has fun at Pride.
Of course they do.
That is true.
As for the actual rugby, yeah, it was a great game though, wasn't it? This Northampton Saints, love it.
Oof.
Sale Sharks.
Sale Sharks.
So Sale Sharks had Manu Taylor-Agi red carded after 13, 14 minutes.
He can't go soon enough.
Then Kobus Visa and was it Ewan Ashman as well. So
yep,
they played, and half the second half they were down to 13 men.
19 points up they were.
Yeah.
Now, I was watching this with the sound off. It looked to me like George Ford was out cold. Did you see his tackle?
No.
So he comes on.
Oh yeah.
Rob Dupree goes to 13. Rob Dupree's playing nice rugby. He's a terrible 13. I don't mind. I don't care what anybody says. Alex Anderson seems to think playing him at 13 for 2 games where he was awful has made him into a great 10. It hasn't. He's just been much better at 10. So he moved Rob Dupree to 13 and George Ford came on the field. And he gets tackled and his head hits the turf. And to me, it looks like he's out cold. Completely out cold.
And played on. No HA.
Yeah, so...
well, he's been called into the England squad, hasn't he?
Has he?
We'll talk about that on the other podcast.
Yeah, we will do.
Yeah, so him and Rafi got on the field. I actually think the way things are going, Rafi and Ford are the second choice halfbacks. I mean, obviously...
On form.
Yeah.
They are, because War and Rob Dupree have got them to second in the league. And deservedly so.
Yeah, I thought Sale were going to struggle so much this year without... Well, it wasn't really... I thought Rafi would do well. Obviously, not having him is tough. I never saw Gus War being the absolutely outstanding player that he's now become. And then I thought, had nightmares about Rob Dupree playing 10. He's doing really, really well.
There was penalty try on 66 minutes. Fraser Dingwall try 70. Callum Brayley try 74 minutes. Fraser Dingwall try 76 minutes.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've got to take your hats off to Saints here. They were outstanding in times. I mean, they were very Saintsy. Like, you know, they were terrible to start with. They can't defend. They're weak, but they stick at it, and that's quite cool. Some of their line breaks are exceptional. I think Tommy Freeman. I mean, I don't know if you know this. He's good at rugby. He's really good at rugby.
I've heard this.
Yeah, really good at rugby. Tom Collins. How does he not get more recognition? Every time he plays, he beats players. He does amazing things. He's rapid. I don't know, is he just too small? There must be something about him that people don't like because he's so effective. And he's, their second or third choice winger? Everyone's Skozan, you've got so many boys.
He was on the bench in this.
Skozan, Ram, Freeman, Slightholme even.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slightholme.
Times class.
So his break it was the Brayley try, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was awesome. Now, it was when Sale were down to 13 men, so there's a bit more room than you might always get. But I do agree with you. He's always electric. He's such a good runner.
Yeah,
and this is what it was. Games like this where Sale have earned the right not to worry too much because they've been so good this season, and the table still has them in a relatively comfortable.
They're still 12 points clear of Northampton, who are now
the rest of the rate. Third place, Northampton, 38 points. Eighth place, Leicester, played 14, 34 points.
Well, the way I look at it is there's first place, there's second place, third place, and by the time you get to fifth place, there's like 5 teams in fifth place.
No. There's 4 points separating third to eighth.
Okay, so from third place,
Leicester, third.
There's like
third and fourth is up for grabs.
Yeah.
Third, you've got Northampton, Gloucester, Irish, Exeter, Quins, and Leicester. 2 of those teams are going to get into the playoffs.
Amazing. I hope Irish do it.
And Irish, after having a dreadful start to the season, they're on a nice run of form at the moment.
Yeah,
they play
hardly lose anyone. through internationals.
They play amazing rugby.
Well, they do, but they've actually got a little bit more pragmatic in their rugby. They're playing a few more percentages, and they
look wild.
They didn't. They can go wild, but they didn't go wild. And when they've got, if they can get into the playoffs, and they've got OHC and Arundel
and Ben Loader,
they can beat anyone. They can beat anybody.
And Parton, although he's hardly played this season.
He's hardly played.
Parton.
And James Stokes.
Well, Tom Pearson. I mean,
Tom Pearson is a beast.
He is an absolute beast. So I've been watching him a bit more closely this season. Yeah, and I didn't like when he first got called up to England last year by Eddie Jones. I was kind of like, Tom, who is this guy? So you start watching him a bit more closely, and he normally wears 7. So you think, oh right, he's going to be a bit of a fetcher, a bit more lightweight.
Nope.
He's more like a Sean O'Brien type 7.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
He's so physical.
I made that comparison 3 weeks ago.
Did you?
Yes.
He is an absolute animal. I love him.
He just bangs things.
Yeah, I don't know. We can talk about this in the England squad and stuff, but I don't know. I haven't managed to get to the bottom of exactly how restricted Steve Borthwick was in choosing his England squad, because Tom Pearson's one of those I was like, well, yeah, you should have a bit of him, and also like Val Rapava Ruskin and stuff like that. But apparently, he may have been limited to the number of changes of the EPS squad.
There are limits to it.
Yeah, so I think it's 5. They have the live squad, and then you have a wider EPS squad. So, say when he calls up, it's normally about 35 for a Six Nations, 31 for a World Cup, but that will be on a wider squad of say 40 or 45. I think it's only 5 or 6 changes from that wider squad of, say, 40 or 45.
Yeah, because it messes up the money, I think, with the England credits.
But, yeah there's that side of it. And Borthwick did mention, I think he got asked about it right at the start when he first named the squad in kind of mid-January, and he said, well, that is the reason. Like there is only so many players that can come in and out. So while I might want other players, I've got restrictions on me to exactly how many can drop.
I'm going to say, we've all been talking up Tom Pearson for a while, but Tom Pearson, World Cup squad, bolter, watch out.
So here's the thing about Tom Pearson. Going to Cocker's Law, who misses out?
Yeah, it's a great question.
That is a good point.
And
because it's a stacked position, back row.
So the way I look at it is, it's very similar to Willis, which is you have to get him in the team because you don't know if he'll improve it until he actually plays.
Shall we put a pin in this and talk about England's back row in the podcast?
Very good point.
Yeah,
very good point.
Before we go too far down that rabbit hole, because I could talk about that for ages. Oh, I will. I will.
But we kind of strayed into London Irish there.
Yeah.
Who had... So I've only seen the extended highlights of this. They were playing away at Bath. What it looked like was Bath, for the first 21 or 22 minutes, were deep inside London Irish's 22, had multiple opportunities to score. Eventually, I think London Irish got a yellow card, the Argentine back row. Gonzalez. Was it him?
Rob Simmons.
Rob
Simmons got a yellow card.
They get over, score after 21, 22, 23 minutes. Then London Irish go immediately downfield and score through Paddy Jackson.
Yeah.
Brummy Paddy Jackson.
Notorious Englishman.
Birmingham's own. And then, other than a penalty, Bath, they had opportunities again. They got deep into London Irish's 22, but didn't score another point for the whole of the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's so unfair that the West Country, which is such good rugby territory, are cursed with Bath and Bristol. It's just not fair. It is not fair. They deserve so much better than these two clubs. I love Bath. I mean, I really do love Bath as a whole entity, the club. It's great.
The city, going there for a bit like...
Well, friend of the pod, Joe Riley, he got in touch because he's a London Irish fan, I think, and he was there at the Rec and did have to say and just emphasise this is one of the greatest places to watch
sport.
A game of rugby. Sport,
it is an amazing place every time, and even just watching on the TV when you've got those Georgian houses, those Bath stone Georgian houses, like looking over the ground, they are just magnificent.
And they've got loads of money. Like, just win some games. How long have you just win some games?
Well, Bath, in fairness to them, they were missing their 2 best players for this game. who they only have because Worcester Warriors went into administration, in Ollie Lawrence and Ted Hill, both missing from this. So without their key men that they've built their whole squad around, how are they going to possibly win anything? It's
quite incredible, isn't it, when you look around the league now, how many of the Worcester lads and the Wasps lads are making a huge impact on their new clubs. And you think, Worcester, they weren't on the verge of winning the Premiership, were they? Because the way that their players are performing for their new clubs, you would have thought, easy.
It's just another example of Steve Diamond failing to get the best out of quality players. Holding back quality players.
If it wasn't for Steve Diamond's impact on their careers when he came in, they would be nowhere now. They'd be playing in Championship sides.
So Irish won comfortably in the end, and are in 5th position and just outside the playoff spots, and could well push on from there.
I think easily get into the playoffs.
You should have put Irish in the top 4 on the whiteboard this year, JJ.
Oh, as a year too early. They are good.
Two people I want to mention from those 2 games, partly because they're good going forward, but partly because they bang. Dingwall putting a couple of awesome hits.
Yeah.
And Jancy van Rensburg for London Irish.
Is he EQP?
Don't know.
It doesn't sound like... Well, it sounds like he could be Scottish qualified.
And his line for... Was it his try or did someone else score? No, it's his try. His line, I don't know if you've seen it. Fantastic line from him. But the Bath 3/4 at the time, it's an international 3/4. Piers Francis, Cam Redpath and Jonathan Joseph. He was wearing 13 in playing 13, and he just picked an unders line. He's 10, 12, 13 with an unders line, and he just sliced through an international 3/4.
Yeah, because Paddy Jackson's great, but Rory Jennings and Ben Hard, Jancy van Rensburg, don't have necessarily the same brand value or name recognition as Jonathan Joseph and Cam Redpath.
Yeah. But they just totally failed. I think it was Thockenham Singer as well defending it outside Jonathan Joseph. Like the 4 of them just failed to recognise him on a big unders line, and he sliced straight through. Very, very. That was very poor from Bath.
Another big game and a very tight match. Marlow had the chance to claw back in Counties 1 tribute Southern North against Chinner 3. It was the top of the table, first v second clash, and it was a 17-all draw.
Was it? Against
Marlow
Chinner 3?
away at Chinner 3.
So that must be Chinner 3's first draw. And first time they've not won,
First time they've not won, and unfortunately that means the boys are probably going to have to be content with second spot in the league.
So I'm trying to work out who gets promoted from our league. Listen to this. Everybody in the Level 7 Counties League who wins that league gets promoted. But then the top 6 runners-up across the Counties League also get promoted. Not top 6, the 6 runners-up. But I don't know where these Counties Leagues are. So there's going to be 3 teams dropping down from our Level 7 league, Level 6 league. I can't work out where these other teams are going to come from. Because it makes no sense to me. And if you read it, it makes even less sense.
So if... in your league, in Toc H's league, if LSH win all their games...
we can't win it.
They're automatically promoted.
Yeah.
If you then win all of your games, are you into a playoff?
No. It's either they go up, or they go up and we go up if we are one of the 6 best runners up.
Okay.
So we don't even get a playoff opportunity. And, it's so hard because I'm certain that 3 teams from this league should go up. LSH because they absolutely deserve it. Tarleton are one of the best teams in the league. Well, and we've beaten both those teams.
Yeah,
so, work it out.
Yeah, pity you can't have more ups and more downs.
I think the RFU league pyramid structure would benefit so much from having more relegation and more promotion because the teams are not sorting themselves fast enough. If we were to build these leagues from scratch now, from the worst teams to the best teams, it'd be brilliant. But unfortunately, we've just got a lot of teams in the wrong leagues.
Well, part of that is you've had this almost accelerated... If teams that are going well have had an accelerated increase and teams that are going poorly have had an accelerated decrease, partly because of COVID. Because some teams just fell apart and never came back together.
Do you know what the RFU decided to do after COVID? They had this no relegation, no promotion thing,
of course.
Right? So that was exactly the wrong thing to do. They should have said 5 teams go up, 5 teams go down.
Yeah.
let's sort much quicker. Let's not sort at all.
Yeah, you almost could have played like. I'm trying to think, like almost merge 2 leagues together and have a shorter season where you play everyone once in 2 leagues to see, or like 3 leagues become 2 leagues for a season, so you can reset.
Or have like a waterfall competition to establish new league tables.
Something like that. I think that...
Like a squash ladder type thing.
I think if I was involved in sports administration, if I ever had that opportunity...
if only.
But seriously, this is for all sports leagues. They should convene a council not of experts or safeguarding professionals or inclusion coordinators. None of these people should have a say in how the structure of the leagues work. They should go and get a panel of economists. Because this just works so much. These are basically economic questions, like how do you sort things better? How do you value things better? That's what they should be doing, because it makes sense, doesn't it, on paper to say no promotion, no relegation because of COVID. It actually made no sense because they never thought it through.
Yeah, it almost should have been and maybe with the buy-in of the clubs, almost like the way that these nameless scouts and stuff rank American football teams in colleges and high schools around America. It's like, oh, you're ranked with this, fine, you get through to that competition.
Well, I guess that's because they're able to do it because there's so much interest, like civilian interest, for want of a better word, in lower level competition. So if you've got journalists writing about it and reporters writing about it, they can give their opinion on what they see. The reason it wouldn't work with rugby is because the only people that really support rugby are linked to clubs. So, I would obviously just rank top eight as top 8.
Aylesbury had another painful defeat, narrowly losing. So that's 3 very close defeats in a row.
Against big teams, though.
Yeah, against big teams.
And you'll be pleased to know that Sedgley won again. 18 unbeaten in the league.
Sedge.
Went away to Rotherham. Tough place to go.
Isn't it?
And won. 20 points to 38. So good win.
Did Albion win?
Don't know.
They were away at Hull, and Hull have not won all year.
Ooh.
So, if they
should have done, based on that.
So they've changed their squad a bit. If they win that, they've got a run of games at home, and they could be dangerous.
They hammered Hull.
Get in.
41-12.
Get in the Albion.
Coldy beat Richmond.
Mugford's Army.
In Championship.
No. Do you know whose army it is?
Championship Cup, even.
Ryan Lamb's army.
Ryan Lamb's playing at Plymouth Albion?
No, he's coaching them.
Oh, love it.
I've heard some phenomenal stories about his man management. Phenomenal. I'd love to share them. So I actually think he does it right.
In what way?
Slightly old school?
Yeah, if you're not making it, if you're not going to make it in Plymouth Albion, he'll tell you very, very directly. Which actually I think I would really appreciate. Rather than just not being spoken to.
I know who did win, Leicester Tigers. That was a great... I can't believe you missed the second half of that, Phil. It was awesome.
It was brutal, wasn't it?
Brutal is the word,
it was
actually.
so violent.
I did catch the last... I saw the tries and I caught the last 5 minutes with the confusion at the end. I saw that.
Leicester Tigers, I tell you what, because that second half, Saracens scored just before the half to...
Yes.
Much like with the Saints game, just to sort of go, I wonder if could they do it?
Yeah, and that was like 42 minutes on the clock, wasn't it? It was like the last play.
And then they would play in all the rugby in the second half. Not that Leicester weren't, it's just Saracens were really having a crack. And the defensive shift that Leicester put in, the massive hits, they were smashing Saracens players.
Now, don't you think that in like an ideal world, if you've got to make trade-offs, if you have to, you would say that you want an old grizzled pack and you want to pair that with a young, exciting backline.
No, get the kids in the pack.
Get the kids in the pack. Give me like George Martin and his bangers, and get me Mike Brown, Jimmy Gopperth, and Chris Ashton in the backline.
Incredible stuff. Incredible. Mike Brown, fair play to him.
Yeah. How good did he look?
He looked amazing. He looked like he's ready to play for England.
Yeah.
Why would you not play like that for England? You've got a World Cup coming up.
He looked so fresh, so fit, so fast, so like he looked like he'd never been away. His first game in 11 months.
So incredible. Good to see him. So good to see him.
Yeah.
And was he 37?
37.
Same age as Johnny Sexton.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It was just so...
I think he's a little bit faster than Johnny Sexton. Still, admittedly, I don't think he's ever been slower than Johnny Sexton.
So what I liked about this game... So Mike Brown played really well, but what I really liked is... the manhandling Nick Tompkins... I don't know if you noticed it. Nick Tompkins manhandled Mike Brown on numerous occasions. Like, it wasn't just a straight up tackle, it was like a scrag and then a lift and a throw to the floor. I do not think Nick Tompkins likes Mike Brown one bit from his.
Well, that was an interesting little subplot in the whole game. There were a few players that you were thinking they're really cheesed off. They're not involved in internationals, and I think Nick Tompkins is one of them. I think it was a bit of it like, I'm going to show you, and he looked great. I'd be having him back in my Welsh squad if I was Warren Gatland.
Hang on, when did he last play for Wales?
The autumn.
You sure it's autumn?
I think so.
Well, are you thinking 3-year rule?
3-year rule, get him back.
It's within 3 years.
Yeah, you want that guy back. He is so aggressive. So aggressive. But the whole, everything about it was aggressive. And I thought in this game there were so many key moments which could have gone either way. And because there was so many of them.
Saracens butchered a few close to the line.
Yeah, so...
it was smart on Leicester's front, but it was naive on Saracens.
Yeah, people are saying that Wigglesworth outcoached McCall today. I don't agree with that
I just
at all.
think that was just playing streetwise on the field. That wasn't coached.
I think the players... The players did what was needed to be done. Leicester Tigers did look more Saracens-like than Saracens, particularly their defence on the line. I think they had two passages of play in defence, which were all-time classics. All-time classics. You can watch that alongside the Wales 4 minutes defensive stand against Ireland. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That is exactly how rugby should be played, and that's how it should be celebrated. Brave, animalistic men battering each other. It was brilliant.
Well, that Leicester Tigers, the pack was younger than the back line, but everything is younger than the back line. That back row, the Leicester back row, I love that back row. It's such a dangerous and dynamic back row.
Cracknell is some pickup, and next year they get Kyle Heatherall, who is another intensely violent man.
Yeah, he's because he's like a 6/second row, isn't he?
He's a big
alongside George Martin and Chesham and the younger Chesham. Montoya's a good player.
Interesting dynamic watching Tom West go up against Robin Hislop. Again, two more players from released from Wasps.
Yeah, good point.
Not a great weekend for the top two. I still think that Saracens are a class above everyone else, even after this defeat.
Well, when there's Farrell, Itoje, George,
Vunipola, Elliot Daly out.
Daly. He won't be back this season, though.
Daly's not back this season?
I don't think. Well, no, he'll be back for the semi-final, but potentially because I've been looking at this with fantasy rugby draft in mind.
Are you still playing? Who are you playing?
You won this weekend.
Did I?
And you haven't selected a team for about 2 months.
Cal Eastman score.
Yeah, I did win this weekend. Well, it's the last ever fantasy rugby draft. They're not doing Premiership next year.
I know, shame, isn't it?
Gutted.
So Phil had a heartbreaking defeat.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that?
I was. I've been checking my team every now and again. Not that I hold out much hope for this season, but
or ever. Then
I want
to finish with a second ring.
Gone.
Yes. Where were we? Oh yeah, just jump. I've just seen another email come in. Mark Hewitt, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. He's excited about Major League Rugby. Another one of our American listeners who's getting into the new season. Over 11,500 people watched San Diego Legion against Utah.
That's awesome.
Utah
Jazz.
Yeah. No, that's the. What's Utah's nickname?
Is it Aviator? No.
Utah. What would you call it? Utah Storm.
What is Utah famous for? Mormons?
Salt Lake City.
Utah Mormons.
The Mormons, yeah.
Utah Warriors.
I was going to say the Utah Chastities.
Anyway, Snapdragon Stadium is where the Legion play.
Do they make semiconductors? Or chips? Snapdragon make chips.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, for phones.
Yeah, cool. I'm well done. Well done, MLR.
That's very, very good. That's very good.
God, if the USA ever take rugby really seriously, we're all in trouble. Well, no, actually, I heard one thing. with 2031 in mind, and off the back of the pain of not making the World Cup this year, there are loads of promising American schoolboy rugby players that are going to school in South Africa.
What? What, really?
Yeah, with the 8-year plan in mind.
So,
wow.
School, age 16.
I think it's basically sort of what would be A level, so 16, 17-year-olds to go and spend a couple of years effectively,
one of the big boarding
A levels or whatever the equivalent is in America, to go to some South African rugby schools to go and play rugby there.
So
wow.
I don't know this for certain, but just looking at the quality of South African players now, I don't think there's probably a better place in the world to learn your rugby.
100%. Have you seen? Did you? I didn't watch much of it, but did you see the little schools championship they had? Did you see any of the stuff on YouTube?
Now, is this they have like a week, don't they?
Yeah, they had I think it's a couple of weeks or whatever. But so you had a few of the best English teams, a few of the best Irish teams, or a couple of Irish teams, a few South Africans and New Zealand teams, Australian, all the rest of it. Anyway.
No, I've not seen any of that.
Oh, Grey College. I watched a clip of Grey's College playing against, I think it might be Hartbury, who were like really, really good.
Yeah.
And they just absolutely battered them.
I'm going to say something which...
They were frightening.
Probably people are going to think I'm a bit nuts for saying this, or engaging in, dabbling in politics rather than rugby, but do you think there's any mileage in thinking that the South African culture and the hardness of that culture is what is benefiting its rugby, particularly in schools? So you see schools now worrying about like head-high tackles, they're worrying about Alison Pollock, worrying about getting sued, worrying about safeguarding. That sort of attitude has to rub off on the kids and has to rub off on the schools' programmes. I don't know what it's like in South Africa, but looking at the old pictures of, say, Duan van der Merwe, it doesn't look as if they are that bothered by anything else other than winning rugby games. And that has to make a difference.
I think it does seem like a logical conclusion from the data that's available.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard not to agree with that.
If you want to see some frightening 17-year-olds, just watch just type in Grey's College on YouTube. Do it now while you're watching film. Just go onto YouTube and type in Grey's College.
Is it just like 15 Evan Ruses?
It is. There's one try I saw where the tight head prop gasses the 15.
Oh, nice.
It's like he's massive and you just gone.
Yeah, I think it's just probably a culture that celebrates that kind of thing. Really,
extreme masculinity and strength, size. Well, it's just these giant Dutchmen, basically, aren't they? that's South Africa is just a load.
Yeah, pretty much.
Speaking of which, the rugby. Oh no, that's international rugby. We'll have to touch on the Rugby Europe Championship
next time.
Did anyone watch Gloucester?
The Friday night.
Oh, can we just... sorry, before we depart this, I just want to ask you a question, because Super Saturday is JB's last game of rugby ever.
It looks like it.
Against LSH.
No, we've done LSH. We have got West Park St Helens.
Right, okay, so JB's last game of rugby ever is on Super Saturday. Should we make a massive day of it at Didsbury?
Should absolutely make every day is a massive day at Didsbury.
No, but we could we can make a big old day of it at Didsbury. Yeah. And if anyone happens to be nearby or fancies watching some Six Nations game and JB's last ever game of rugby,
it'd be nice to be appreciated.
Could we get one of those VO cameras and stream the game and me and Phil commentate on your last game of rugby?
I'm pretty sure everyone in our league has a VO camera now because we all share the footage. So we definitely have one.
Potentially, could you ask your people at Didsbury, would they be able to set up a situation where they can stream the game and Phil and I commentate on your last ever game of rugby?
But perhaps.
I would enjoy that.
I will just say this. I don't want it to be my last game of rugby, but if the laws change and they change too much, I'm not playing. I'm just not going to play.
Well, it sounds better doing that.
Yeah. So I don't want to be in a situation where I can't play again because I've already said my last game.
But if we could sort that out, that'd be fun, and then people could watch your last game. Asterisk may not be last game. Hopefully, people see sense and the law height doesn't get dropped overly. But if it is your last game, wouldn't that be cool?
It'd be great
if it was streamed to the world and me and Phil were commentating on it, and people were chipping in. listeners would
I'm
chip
not
in.
sure we'll upset people because I know Nick Mullins would want to do that game.
Hey, if Nick Mullins is free and wants to come up, because it's Super Saturday, I'm sure he'd probably just say, "Look, do you know what? Give the England gig to someone else."
Yeah,
we could do the England gig. He can do the Talk H.
We'll
gig.
do England Ireland.
Yes,
Nick, you can.
I know what he'd want to do. I mean, maybe he's got contractual obligations and whatnot. The thing is, with the Six Nations will wait around for him. It's not like he's in danger. It's not like he's going to give up his shirt and someone's going to do a better job. So he could actually do Talk H and then go and return to Six Nations at another time.
Yeah,
easy.
Or alternatively, just he could do England v Ireland's Grand Slam game against England on St Patrick's Day weekend. He could do that from a shipping container at Didsbury Talk H after your match.
Exactly right. We've got many shipping containers. It'll be fine.
All right, watch this space on that one.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you want to come down.
So Gloucester.
Oh yeah,
Get in Gloucester.
Friday night.
Well done, Gloucester. They needed that, didn't
win.
They needed that
because this puts Quins down in 7th place.
Yeah, mad.
And Gloucester up into 4th place.
You mean level 5th?
All joint, really joint 4th. Everyone, or even joint 3rd. Everyone is. Yeah, great win. Great win for Gloucester.
So, I'm trying to remember this game. Do you know when everything merges into one? Gloucester got 2 driving walls?
There was
1 driving wall.
Quins got got one. Gloucester got the first one, then Quins got one. I think all of the rest of Gloucester's were...
There's a kick across.
That was for Thorley's.
Yep.
There was the Santiago Carreras, and then there was the Carreras kind of offload for Lewis Rees Summit. So it was only 1 driving wall for Gloucester.
Ah. Yeah, I love Gloucester. If I could pick a team that I'd want to win the Premiership this year, it would be Gloucester.
Well, that just purely the Ed Slater connection is why I'd want them to. But they are a fantastic club, and they're really pushing on. Love the way they play. Hard, gnarly pack, and some absolute ballers out wide. Santi Carreras at 10.
He's outrageous.
He is ridiculous.
He's so
and they didn't even know he was good. That's hilarious. Like a year. It took me a year to realise that he was...
It's mad. Like Argentina was starting him at 10, and George Skivington actually did admit in a BT Sport interview when he played there once. He said, "We've never run him at 10, even in practice."
What?
This was like only a couple of months ago.
It does show, doesn't it? Like
one of the world's best ends.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say Skivington is in this category because he's obviously quite a brilliant coach, but there's clearly a lot of directors of rugby who overlook things, shall we say. The fact that Mike Brown has not been picked up by anybody is amazing. And the fact that another director of rugby... how much money do they spend on recruiting world-class 10s? I mean, I would suspect that someone like Leicester Tigers, to get to Andre Pollard, would have looked at literally thousands of 10s. And Gloucester have one on their wing. Just on their wing. Oh, he's there. That guy there. He's brilliant.
He's so good.
So they do miss things occasionally, these DORs. They're not the all-seeing geniuses that we think.
Mm-hmm. But they weave a nice narrative when they win things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't wait to get onto narrative weaving when we talk about Newcastle, Bristol. That's a narrative I love to weave.
Well, go on. Talk about Newcastle, Bristol and narrative weaving.
Well, just before we do, where are Gloucester in the table now?
4th.
Yeah.
And
Come on, Gloucester.
And Quins are in 7th. Although there's 3 points separating the two of them.
So I had a call this week with a guy who's doing a dissertation on salary caps.
Interesting.
So he wanted to know my views on things. God knows why, but he did. And obviously I gave him the simultaneous multi-round auction idea.
Yeah.
Classic. But when I was reflecting on the conversation, I was thinking, like, this is the reason I love salary caps so much, and in particular I love the Premiership so much. Because even though this year has been awful for Premiership rugby, objectively with 2 teams going and players leaving, every single team has such a distinct identity now. Because they have to have one. Otherwise, they lose. So you need to work out what you're leaving out, what you're putting in, and how your team plays. And Gloucester is such a good example of this. And maybe the worst example of it is Bristol.
Well, James Sage, contact eggchasers@gmail.com, and he was highlighting the closeness of everyone in the league and says, as a Bears fan, I doubt we can mount a run to the top 6, but I feel 7th or 8th is certainly in our grasp with more home than away games. But given our form to date, my money won't be given to the bookies. I'm intrigued that people now question the speculation over Pat Lam. Now is the obvious time, as the remainder of his contract has the option of a break clause at the end of the season.
Oh.
I was not aware of this.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense rather than just give him a carte blanche 8-year deal or whatever it was.
Oh, so there you go. That's a bit of... Thank you, James.
That makes a lot of sense.
So did I talk last week about my feelings on directors of rugby and who should be a director of rugby in the Premiership and who should not be a director of rugby in the Premiership?
I feel like you've spoken about it in the past, but go on.
Give us the headline.
Yeah, repeat.
Headline is, the Premiership is full of the greatest coaching teams in the world, or best up-and-coming coaches in the world, because they have to be. There is nowhere in the Premiership side. You can't just come into Premiership like, say, Racing and create your own squad.
Oh, yeah, you talked about Razzie. Or,
yeah.
So it was in the context of the Leicester job.
So why would a Razzie or a Chica or any international coach risk his reputation going to the Premiership where you've got to...
Yes.
Every single year you've got to reinforce...
You did talk about that.
Yeah. Well, Pat Lam's a great example because he was... he had one of the best reputations in the world. I think he was... the most expensive, or one of the most expensive coaches in the world when he signed for Bristol because of what he'd done at Connacht.
Yeah, and I actually think, looking back at it, it was the right appointment. I mean, it's obviously the right appointment because they did quite well for a few years. And Pat Lam had earned that.
Yeah,
you don't win
definitely. Winning it with Connacht is a hell of a story. It's a hell of a result.
But I think he's got lazy. I just think he's lost his way.
Well, so I don't think it's laziness. I think he's underappreciated the constraints of the salary cap.
Yeah.
And he's put too many eggs in, too few baskets, not one basket. But to have so much of his salary cap tied up in Piatau, Radradra, Luatua, Vui, Genge and Sinclair.
Yeah.
And to have Sheedy and McGinty...
It makes no sense, does it?
Yeah, to have both of those. But let's say those 8 players, because naming Sheedy and McGinty, they're on a pretty penny too. But on those 8 players, I bet they take up more than half of his salary cap.
Yeah.
So that's what he's lost. He has to make the trade-offs elsewhere are so big that he's misbalanced. He's inadequately balanced his squad.
Pat Lam would be a winning coach again if he could spend whatever he wanted. And with his owners, he probably could spend whatever he wanted if the salary cap wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's not the game. It's not the game.
No.
He's got this weird style of play that doesn't seem to be effective anymore. And I think it's because teams have worked him out.
I'm just looking at their scores again, and I know they are a little bit off of that 7. So going back to November in the Premiership, they lost by 6 points to Gloucester away, lost by 5 points to Sale away, drew with Leicester. They narrowly beat Quins, lost to Irish, didn't get close. Lost by a point away to Saracens.
But do you know what that tells me?
So that
tells me they can't manage tight games, and that is a fundamental flaw.
Well,
because in the Premiership, all the games are tight. So when you get these, like today's game, Leicester versus Saracens, that's a 6-point game, and the team that won that was the team able to dog it out. And Bristol don't have that; they play in a different way.
I get what you're saying, but I would also say that it does just highlight the margins are very small, and it could just be it could be a very small thing, which is the difference between two of those wins go different. 2 of those games go differently. Those 4 tight defeats they've had in the league or the 1 draw and the 4 tight defeats since November. 2 or 3 of those go the other way, and they're looking in a very different place.
Well, they'd be London Irish, wouldn't they? They'd be playing. I mean, that's how they kind of want to play that sort of free-flowing, expansive rugby.
And that's the difference between Gloucester of this year and previous years.
So, I agree with you that if there was no salary cap and Pat Lam had all Steve Lansdown's money to play with, he'd be a great coach, or he would create a great team. Now, interestingly, he didn't have that with Connacht.
No, he won the URC at Connacht.
So this is where I think he's not understood the brief of the salary cap correctly, misaligned. Now, what I would actually love to see, I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see him keep his job, have a 3-4 year plan, rebuild this team. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but this would be the test of the man. If he could rebuild this team, get rid of some of those, or rebalance the squad so it is more even rather than the haves and the have-nots, and then mount another title surge. Even if he didn't win it.
So Randrandra's going and Ravuvu is coming in, who is a just new to the international game with Fiji, but he's an inside centre for Fiji, and that's a bit more like that. Feels like playing the salary cap, because you're probably getting Ravuvu for a fifth of the money that they've got for Ranarandra.
Yes,
the whole squad feels like it's aged at the same time. Yeah, it needs a lot of work.
Yeah, it needs a lot of work. Now, I don't think he will redo that, but I think if he assessed it correctly, corrected for his mistakes, and there are clear mistakes, I'd actually love to see Bristol rebuild under Pat Lam and get them back. But
he also finished them top of the league.
He did. Yeah.
He was he last year?
Was it
second to last?
Yeah, or was it Worcester? Yeah, but the year before, and he was 20. Not only did he win the league, finish top of the league, he was 28 points to nil up in the semi-final after 28.
That's his sliding doors moment.
Yeah. He was scoring at a point a minute in the semi-final and lost it.
Yes.
That was the turning point.
Devastating.
Totally.
I think his 5-year contract was the... Well,
or was it Steve Borthwick, the argument on the touchline? Was that
you're a liar, Pat, or whatever. Just don't lie, Pat. I love that. And he's still not really...
That was class.
I was thinking about this today. He's still not come back to us, like he said he would, with the RFU report. I've not even looked for this RFU report. Was it ever issued about what happened? Because his whole talking point was, and this is when I really got a feeling that I'm not sure I'm keen on this guy. He's like, yeah, well, we just want the report because it will tell you exactly what happened. I was like, you can't lie to us. You've already lied to Borthwick and everyone else.
And
now you're continuing this lie with, the RFU will find us innocent and we welcome the report. Well, I've never seen this report. Again, this is not based on anything concrete. When I look at their signings, it strikes me that they're not doing their homework, because it is easy to sign big name players. I mean, if you got your under-14s team, under-15s now, sorry, to do some signings, they would look very similar to Bristol signings.
Genge, Sinclair, Andrandra.
It's like, who's in the sticker book? Yeah, we'll have him.
Yeah.
And they just don't seem to be doing the work. Whereas, I hate to say Leicester Tigers because they're only one position above Bristol, but they are doing the work. Or who's another team that are very good at squeezing up? Like Saracens, they're bringing in lads you've never heard of because they're doing the work. I'm not sure that Bristol are, and that is... I mean, the coaching is one thing, but that squad construction, it just needs more attention.
He looked like a bit of a genius when Henry Purdy was tearing it up.
Yeah.
And
Piers O'Connor.
That's what he needs. He's Piers O'Connor's.
Yeah.
He needs that young lad, what's his name, who's disappeared now? The young genius, the Welsh young genius.
Young Lloyd.
What's happened to him?
He
Is he
was
dead?
on the bench, yeah.
Apparently his brother's brilliant too.
Jack.
Have you seen him play yet?
No. Well, yeah, I think he might have played Premiership Cup or been on the bench. I'm not sure.
Bringing through those and then getting the best out of Harry Thacker and then bringing Fitzharding through. Like that's the side he needs more of.
Sam Jeffries.
Yeah.
There's a load of good things. That's what they need to be doing, not signing bloody Sinks and Genge and AJ, and it just doesn't work.
But they had a good win this week.
Yeah, really good.
Bonus point win.
Convincing.
Against, admittedly, a Newcastle
team shedding all their players.
And that was misfiring. The number of knock-ons from that Newcastle team was ridiculous. So, yeah, not a good result. Good to get the win. Bonus point try in the 80-something.
Right, I'm going to apologise immediately now to Pat Lam, because playing 12 for Bristol was James Williams. I really like James Williams. That is a clever pickup. Well done, Pat Lam. Take it all back. So very nice little player.
Well, and this is where, because he did it with Connor, because we've seen him do it to good effect previously with Bristol, but he's gone too far the other way, I want to see him have this rebuild. I want to see him pick up the next Piers O'Connor and bring the next Fitzharding and Harry Randall through.
Maybe he's lost the step, though, the whole thing. And that's what I mean by the Premiership being brutal. You've got to do it every single year. I mean, I wonder how Rob Baxter's going to deal with it. Because it must be really hard to have a great team and then have to start from scratch over again. I mean, imagine your career if you just had to start completely from scratch from the bottom. Because that's what you've got to do.
Well, it's not completely from scratch, is it? Because he's got a load of good players, but he's got to call time on some of the guys that he's brought all the way through to the top of the game, to international game, and to winning European Cups from being kids, and start again. For those, but it's not like he's ripping up the entire squad. There'll be guys there, young guys in that Exeter team, like Josh Hodge, for example, who I think is super, super talented. If you can just pack on a bit of mass, he will be a quality operator for many years for them. Good Geordie lad as well, good Falcons lad.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as just ripping everything up, is it?
I don't know because it depends how you do it. My mind is thinking, like, do you want to target? Should your target as a professional rugby team now be third every year? If you can, or playoffs every year, because that's achievable, but that's consistent. But you then also have to accept that you probably won't win, but you'll be constantly in the hunt. Or you rip it all up, finish bottom for a few years, and then win it all in one go with a big gamble. Leicester Tigers.
Yeah. Now that wasn't a strategy. It wasn't a long-term club strategy.
It was,
but Borthwick basically said, I've got to get rid of a load of players. I've got to find out who's good, find out who's bad, get rid of the bad, keep the good.
And then we're going to win it.
Yeah.
And now they're in the conundrum. Do they then try
Borthwick's strategy, had he had stayed at Leicester, wouldn't have been rip it up, start again. They wouldn't have been peak and trough.
Maybe it has to be, though.
Yeah.
and that's when...
Saracens never did that.
And but they were doing other things. But that's maybe when you lose your fast step, because you realise what needs to be done at the start and you're ruthless, and then you get comfortable, you win the title, and I can't get rid of all these guys. They're really good. But that's maybe what you need to do again.
But then that's
free up your salary cap, start again.
That's why I think Baxter will come good as well, because he has made those tough decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He could, like, a lesser coach would have said, someone's going to pay Sam Simmons 500k, I'm going to pay him 520k. And someone's going to pay LCD 450k, I'll pay him 460k.
Yeah.
And then he suddenly has no money to bring through the kids.
Yeah, and he's not done that. So, do you know what the biggest news was for Exeter Chiefs this week? Biggest news.
Maybe the 60 cap rule could be going.
Nailed it. That is the biggest news for them.
And we will talk about that on the next pod.
Because that's the core of their team. That is going to be the heartbeat of their pack for years. And if they keep those two, well, then the rebuild really is on.
If they keep Daffy Jenkins and Chris Chuzunza, that will be massive. Because they've put a lot, they've identified them, they've put a lot of effort into them. They are now international
Doesn't make you sick to your stomach?
They were happy to let Johnny Hill go as a consequence of knowing that they've got those two.
Sam Skinner,
yeah. Do you know what, though? It makes me sick to my stomach to think that the Dragons reckon they're entitled to the talents of Jenkins and Shunda just because they're in Wales.
Yeah,
they're entitled to them. The arrogance of the Welsh Union is beyond comprehension.
We can talk about that on the next podcast. On the URC, Munster absolutely panned Ospreys. Glasgow, with a very depleted team, beat your proud Ulstermen, who had quite a strong team out.
Yeah. Ulster are
still in contention.
Yeah, but we've really been struggling recently. We had a great start to the season and everything has just ground to a bit of a halt.
The South African teams played each other. Connacht beat Zebra. Scarlets had a good win against Edinburgh. Cardiff had a good win at home to Benetton.
Yeah, JB, your beloved Benetton, smashed by Cardiff.
Get in.
Leinster panned.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Get in.
So that leaves the top four: Leinster, Stormers, Ulster, Glasgow, and the Welsh teams in 9th, 12th, 13th, and 15th out of 16.
Did anyone see BT Sport today?
Rugby Tonight?
Yeah.
No, talk to me.
It was, simply put, one of the best demonstrations of rugby I have seen on TV. It was Jamie Roberts and
Bod.
It was so good. Like some of these demonstrations.
Nice combo. 2009 starting Lions Centre partnership.
Not in the deciding test.
Not in the other.
In the first two tests, yes.
Yeah. So they run through the basics of inside and outside centre play together and how they help each other out and dovetail. And some of these walkthroughs are just a little bit of a waste of time, aren't they? There's no detail. Honestly, watch it. That's what we need. We need that sort of stuff all of the time. It was honestly brilliant.
When you get these stars doing it, the Sam Warburton breakdown one was amazing as well.
Yeah. And I guess it is hard to recreate this all the time. I remember Chris Pennell telling me about how he plays fullback and how he tries to manipulate with his positioning what the fly half will do by coming flat to the line to bait him into kicking to then dropping back. And then I think Mark Atkinson was telling me that they do the same thing, but they like to kick from 12 because the fullback is sort of baiting for the kick. And then if you've got a kicking 12, if you pass it out one, he might drop back. And then there's all sorts of games. That's the sort of detail that you need, because that's the thing which, particularly sports nerds and men sitting at home who love the sport and want to know more about, that is the thing that they absolutely thrive off. You look at the NFL.
Or kids who are watching.
Yeah.
Like those details, that insight for an under 15 watching is invaluable.
Do you know, I had a coaching session when I was about 15 or 16. And it was with a rugby league coach, and it's the first time. So I'd played rugby. No, maybe a bit older. Maybe I was sort of like 18, 19, right? And I've been playing rugby a while by then. No one had ever taught me unders and overs lines ever. Just
really?
Never heard of it. And this rugby league coach did a session, and there must only be 8 people that showed up. It was pouring with rain. We did unders and overs. It changed my game ever.
Unders and overs is so important.
It's so important. And so they were basically doing a version of overs and unders, but with so much more detail. And talking about the hips and how they have to move players and fix them. And, that is exactly the content that we need. It's brilliant.
So is it, when I used to play centre, one of my favourite things was running an overs to under or unders to over line. So for your first kind of 3 steps,
one way,
you're going one way, and you go quite hard. And it always works better overs first. So you start,
this is my favourite line.
Drifting. So the opposite man sees you drifting, starts drifting, and then he's looking at where the ball's coming.
Exactly right.
And you hit the unders line and just get that inside shoulder because he's going out as you're coming in.
The weak arm.
And for 12 or 13, the best move for it is such an old school move. You never see it these days at high level, but it's probably still quite effective at low level, is DSP. If you run, you start off in the 13 channel, running the same outside arc as the 10 who's going across, and then you just cut back in last minute, your last kind of 3 steps. Always find a soft.
So you're at 13 and he dummy switches the 12 and then
dummy switches 12
and you hit the hard line.
Hit the hard line in because your 13 has already gone out, and the 12 has stepped in to mark his 12. So it creates. It wouldn't
Everyone's
work.
drifting one way and you're going back against the grain.
It wouldn't work at high level because of the defensive setups, whereas at lower level, and particularly as a kid, it used to work brilliantly because you just mark your man at 12, 13.
So a good overs to unders line still always works.
Yeah.
Because you win on two ways. You either win because the defender follows you out and then you've got a massive hole, or you win because he's not watching you when you slam into the line. It works both ways. And I tell you the other thing which people don't talk about enough is the extra distance you travel by going over to under allows you to regulate your speed. So if you're just going straight, you've
completely agree with that. Yeah.
You've got to get your timing bang on. But if you go out to in, you can sort of drift out a little bit, and then you speed up.
Yeah, you've got more time to pick your line and go faster when you hit that line as well. Yeah. Because you've delayed your need to accelerate.
There was one bit which I'm not sure that's going to work for me. And what they were doing is Bod would get the ball, he would be playing 12, and this is I think a Lions move that they were running, and Ireland ran it all the time. And then Jamie Roberts would come hard on this ball, and instead of giving it to Jamie Roberts, he would then pop it out the back to, would you believe it, a looping Johnny Sexton.
No way.
Yeah, so it's a real...
I've never... Did they run that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's apparently it's not good. And Bod says, the secret to this is to make Jamie think he's getting the ball.
Yeah.
Jamie thinks he's getting the ball. The opposition will think he's getting the ball. Now, I'm not being funny. If I thought I was getting that ball, my hands would be everywhere trying to slap that ball. Yeah. You want to make sure that I know I'm not getting that ball, because otherwise I'm going to be knocking it on, I'm going to be reaching behind me for it, I'm going to be... No.
It was the centre for the deciding test because the deciding test was the second test.
Oh, quite right.
So, yeah.
For Bod's final test.
For the final.
For Bod's final game for the Lions.
Well, no, because he played in 2013.
Oh, yes.
He did, but Bod was dropped for the deciding test, wasn't he?
That's the one I was thinking you meant.
For Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan Davis.
For JD, that's it.
But yeah, they played the first 2 tests in 2009.
Yes, you're right.
Well,
God, yeah, wow.
in South Africa.
Well.
Yes.
I think we're done. Quick look at the fixtures for next week.
Oh, good question.
Who have Talk H got?
Oh, Super Rugby starts again next week.
Talk H have got... we've got Old Winians. So...
Home or away?
Home. I don't know if I spoke about Old Winians before.
Mm-hmm.
I massively rate Old Winians. Mm-hmm. Massively rate them.
Good club. Tough club.
Tough club. Yeah, that is... It's never an easy game. And when you need to win these games, literally the last team in the world we want to see is Old Winians. I'd rather play LSH, Widnes, or Tarleton than play Winnies this week.
What about South Africa?
Yeah, I'd rather take on South Africa. I reckon South Africa would come with less attitude than Winnies.
Oh, get this. So I was just looking. My boys Nola Gold went down in their opening MLR game. They can put that right against the Houston Sabercats. But New York Rugby Club have got a nickname now.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
New York Ironworkers.
Ooh, I like that.
I do quite like that as well.
Ironworkers.
It conjures up the image of the blokes sitting having lunch on the steelwork, the RSJ, when the Empire State Building.
Oh, those were proper men. Those were
real men.
They're insane.
Oh, actually,
they really are insane. One of my favourite stats in the world is the time it took to build the Empire State Building was just over a year.
What?
400 days, 405 days, something like that.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is...
and then you look at Crossrail in 2023 and Wembley Stadium.
All right.
Don't.
Before we go...
There's lots of... You'll get me started. Lots of complex reasons, not all of which I agree with, but it's absolutely remarkable, the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building when those two were built.
Wow.
So I'm going to read you a list of names before we go, right? A list of names. And I want you to tell me what these names are, okay? So Greater Manchester Fire Brigade.
Okay.
HM Prison Hindley.
Is this a rugby league? Teams in a rugby league?
These are similar. So I looked up today which teams are... I thought I knew the teams in Lancashire.
Ah, okay.
I do not know the teams in Lancashire.
How many teams are there in Lancashire?
87.
Right, okay.
So, including these teams, Anti-Assassins, I thought they were...
Yeah, they're like
Is that the Stuart Lancaster one?
Charity team.
Charity.
Stuart Lancaster has something to do with them, or had something to do with them.
I think he does, or did.
Eagle.
Don't know Eagle.
I don't want to offend the people of Eagle, or the town of Eagle. But
town of Eagle.
I think that's a pub. East City Saints.
No idea.
Edge Hill University.
How many East City Saints?
Edge Hill University is Liverpool.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they're affiliated to Lancashire. Who knows? Yeah, maybe.
Liverpool's in Lancashire.
Yeah.
England Fire Service. I don't know why they're here. Greater Manchester Fire Service, Greater Manchester Police. Yeah. HM Prison Hindley. Lancashire Constabulary, which is obviously a different
police force.
Is it?
Yeah.
The Leyland Warriors. I've never heard of them.
No.
Manchester Medics. Manchester YMCA. Huh?
Mm.
Don't know.
Actually play?
I've got no idea, but they're here.
And they are different to Manchester Spartans.
Now, I've heard of Oral.
Yes.
But I've never heard of Oral St James. Have you heard of Oral St...
Have I heard? Yeah, I think I have heard of
Have
them.
you?
Sure I have.
St James was what Northampton were called before they were Northampton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe an old school or...
Yeah.
St Edward's Old Boys. Never heard of them.
Nope.
So, yeah, there's...
What are the fixtures this weekend, Phil?
Friday night, we have the West Country Derby at the Rec, Bath versus Bristol.
Oh, it's a great spectacle. I'm at Cardiff on Saturday. I might go to that game on Friday night.
If you can get tickets or accreditation.
Oh, I'll be able to get tickets. I'll be able to
You'll be able to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in fact, I'll just if it's a BT game, I'll
great game to be at that.
Can I come and make tea for Doyler? So,
Bath will be without Ollie Lawrence. Probably without Ted Hill. Is he injured? There's no other reason why you'd not play him because he's so.
JB's boy Max Ajomo will come back and tear it up.
I'd have thought so.
I'm gonna go for Bristol.
Yeah, give me Bristol because they're losing fewer players, I think. Then on Saturday we have Saracens hosting Falcons, which will be a big home win. Saints hosting Gloucester.
Ooh, 3rd v 4th.
4th, yeah.
Oh, I'm
gonna
go Saints at home.
Yeah, probably.
Although Gloucester's pack actually matches up really well against Northampton, I'm going to go Gloucester. They're going to bully Saints.
Have you seen that Jake Pelledri's out of the Six Nations
I know.
as well?
How?
I know.
Shoulder injury. So he came off with 3 minutes to go against England.
Yeah, rubbish.
Yeah, give me Gloucester. Then Irish host Tigers.
Tigers team looked good.
They did. And they got options as well to come in.
Yeah, they do.
Even though they're losing players.
That's so hard to pick. I'll just go Irish out of sentimentality.
Come on, Irish.
Come on, Irish. Come on, you
Irish for the top 4. And then on Sunday we have JB's beloved travel to Tony Rose. Exeter Chiefs.
Well, judging by the Premiership Cup semi, Exeter, surely.
I think it'll be a different matter of sale. Although Tom Curry is back with England, which anyway, that leads us on to the international podcast.
It certainly does.
Which will be in your feed. Let the boys play.